Welcome to another episode of Becoming Unfuckwithable with your host, Mindy, Harley. Warning, listening to this podcast might cause you to shatter your limited beliefs, recognize your potential, and motivate you to be the best you can be. Other side effects may include, but not limited to, grabbing life by the balls, taking no crap from anyone, becoming an unstoppable force at various aha moments to get you thinking outside the box.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a very special episode of Becoming Unfuckwithable. I'm your host, Mindy Harley, and I have with me the Honorable Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada. Maxime, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Mindy. I'm very pleased to be with you. That will be fun like the last time. So it's always my pleasure to do that with you.
Thank you so much. You know, I just want to get this out of the way for my audience and even for you. You know, growing up, I was in a home divided on two paths. My dad was very much involved with politics. You know, we helped the Conservatives fundraise, and my mom was on the other end of the spectrum. She raised me that the government doesn't look after you, you look after yourself. And she didn't vote for her entire life, with the exception of last year. And she voted for you. Oh. And, you know, I've always thought, you know, you can't trust a politician as far as you can throw them. I never really paid that much attention to politics, but boy, did I have an eye-opening come 2020. And you caught my attention specifically in early 2020 when I had shared a meme on Twitter of the founding fathers saying, you know, give me liberty or give me death, unless it's a disease with, you know, 99.999% chance of survival. And you caught my attention. And I thought, you know, who is this man? And wow, you know, he's definitely really brave to be retweeting such a very strong, opinionated meme as well. And I looked and, you know, you caught my attention. You've been on the battleground, so to speak, from day one, because I was on the battleground, so to speak, from day one. And I saw you RT that. And from that time, I've always followed your progress. Now, myself, I know a bit about your history and how you've started, but for my listeners, can you just tell us a little bit about how you came to be, how the PPC came to be, and what was your initial start leading the PPC?
Yes, as you may know, I was a candidate for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada in 2017. I didn't win with 49% of the vote. And I tried for 13 months to influence the establishment of the Conservative Party of Canada, and at that time, the leader, Andrew Scheer, to take some of our ideas because they were very popular. And Andrew Scheer was very honest with me after 13 months. And he said, Maxime, for the next platform of the Conservative Party of Canada, for the next general election that will happen in 2019 and happen in 2019, we won't take any of your ideas because they're not popular. So we won't run on it. And that's why I left the Conservative Party of Canada. And I said that party, the Conservative, is intellectually and morally corrupt because they're not doing politics based on conviction and ideas and conservative ideas, but based on survey and polling. And by having the name Conservative as a political party, when they're speaking like the leftists and the woke, they're giving credibility to that narrative. So they're not helping to grow our movement as the conservative movement or the movement of freedom. So I was very pleased, and I believe that it was the best political decision that I took to create the PPC in 2018. And we are doing politics differently, and that's not a slogan, because we created that party based on 4 principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And all our policies are in line with these principles. So just to be short on that, at the first campaign that we did in 2019, we did run on a very strong freedom platform. And in 2021, the last election, that was the same platform. And that will be the same platform at the next election until we win the battle of ideas. And we are in a kind of a war right now. I will call that a cultural war because wokeism is everywhere. And, if we're speaking about something that is not popular, it's not important for us. We know that when we speak about Western civilization values and freedom values, it will become popular if we speak openly with passion and conviction. And actually, I think we were right because we started the party at 0%, first election 1.6%, and the last election 5%. So we will grow and we will win that battle of ideas. But I don't know when, but step by step we'll be there.
Yeah, and you guys have had incredible growth, and with the direction of things right now in Canada and the world, I really see that you guys are only going to keep growing. And with that being said, there's now we see Pierre Poilievre, and just to note, I am a Canadian that lives in the United States, and so I've been watching everything down here and trying to keep up with things as much as possible. And it's interesting to me because, like I said, I saw you from the very beginning of, right at the beginning of 2020. And now we have, a conservative that's coming on board, kind of generally sharing the same sentiments, it seems like, as the PPC. But to me, and I got criticism for this, and it's okay, because I believe that, politicians should be held, under a microscope and should be held to a higher level of scrutiny. And I really just kind of saw someone that was only speaking because now it was, an opportune time to do that, and hearing kind of the tones and levels of Canadians with wanting their freedoms and wanting their freedom of speech and wanting their right to travel. And for me, there's been a little bit of controversy with Pierre, with his involvement with the WEF, and I've heard the same sentiment in regards to your past involvement with the WEF. And I've heard from many people, but I want to hear, and I kind of know and I have an idea, but I want to hear, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, as to what was your involvement with the WEF years ago?
Okay, before answering the question, I just want to answer the other part of the question about Pierre Poilievre. You're
Please
right that, you're right when you said, now it's popular to speak about freedom, and he's doing that. So that's why, what Pierre Poilievre is saying today, that may be the opposite if he's the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. And for them, their only goal is to be in government, and to be able to win, they will need to have seats in the GTA around Toronto. There's more seats there than in all Alberta. And so that's why, they will go back to the left when the time will come. And speaking about freedom, Pierre Poilievre also lied to Canadians when he said, I was there for you since the beginning. And for him, the beginning of the pandemic was the beginning to be for freedom and against the mandates was when the federal government imposed mandates, and that was in August 2021. But in August 2021, Justin Trudeau said he will impose a vaccine passport for civil servants working for the federal government, and also for Canadians to be able to travel across the country. So when he did that announcement, 7 members of parliament, conservative members of parliament, stood up and said that, no, we don't agree with that, and we must not go on that road. These people were part of the shadow cabinet with Erin O'Toole. They were critics in the shadow cabinet of O'Toole, but O'Toole did a shuffle in November 9, 2021, and all these MPs, conservative MPs, critics, lost their jobs because they were speaking against the mandate. Pierre Poilievre didn't say anything against the mandate at that time and received a promotion from his boss, and he went back to be the critics of the finance minister. So he started to speak. He started to speak against the mandates and for freedom the last week of January, when the Freedom Convoy were there in Ottawa the last week. So he is an opportunist politician, and he wasn't there in the beginning in March 2020. I was there because it's part of our principles to fight for freedom. And in August 2021, he was not there to say that he does not agree with the decision of the Trudeau government. He was silent until the end of January. So that's about Pierre Poilievre. About me being with the World Economic Forum, yes, you're right. I was there in 2008. They had a conference in Davos in 2008. And at that time, I was the foreign affairs minister for the federal government, for the Canadian government. And at that time, the Canadian government and Canada, we were in war in Afghanistan. And as you know, our Canadian forces didn't have the right equipment at that time, and still doesn't have the right equipment right now. So I was there to meet other foreign affairs ministers, my counterparts, because they were all there for that meeting, that World Economic Forum. And my goal, I was there 2 days, was to speak with them and asking them to help us in Afghanistan. I had a lot of meetings with foreign affairs minister at the same time there. It was very efficient for me. I just did one trip and I was able to meet all these European and other counterparts. And after this meeting, I left Davos. So I never assisted at that conference. And that people are saying, because I was in Davos, I'm with the World Economic Forum. No, I'm not part of that. I've never been part of that. I was just there for business and to be more efficient, to save money for Canadians and taxpayers. By one trip, I was able to have 15 meetings with foreign affairs minister. So that's why some people are saying Bernie was in Davos in 2008. That's right, but I was not at the World Economic Forum conference. So that being said, the World Economic Forum conference is a kind of a socialist organization, and they are promoting a world government that I don't believe in. I'm promoting Canada and Canadian sovereignty. And, we don't want to have to deal with another supranational government that will tell us what to do here in Canada.
Yes, yes. Well, that's great to hear because, like I said, I've heard it myself. And like I said, I've even, seen the scrutiny that Pierre has gotten and many, many cabinet leaders, anyone, even here in the United States, Tulsi Gabbard was part of the WEF, many other people, Mark Zuckerberg, young leaders, as we've seen before with all these organizations. And, with going there in 2008 and the WEF, Klaus Schwab had started that in 1970, and it was originally called the European Management Symposium. And, Klaus, himself was taught by Henry Kissinger in Harvard. And this organization that he built up, there was other ones that spawned off of it, the Club of Rome from 1968 that were obsessed with eugenics and world depopulation. And they were obsessed with reducing the population, but they had to get behind this idea. They had to have a common enemy to put the idea through, so to speak. And that was, the pollution and ultimately humanity, because humanity is responsible for the pollution. And we've had, that organization was founded at the Rockefeller. So we have the Rockefellers, we have these shadow societies. And even as I'm in the States and I have to learn my American history before I go for my citizenship, and I'm learning, how all the founding fathers were actually Masons. And, Benjamin Franklin was a member of the Hellcat Society. Was there any point in your mind when you walked in there in 2008, did you have an inkling of kind of the plans or where they were kind of steering things to, or did you kind of have an epiphany moment sometime in 2020 where you went, holy, this is really headed towards, they want transhumanism, they want the one world government, something's fishy. Did you have that aha moment back then, or did it spawn on you later?
At that time in 2008, the discussion that they had, when I'm saying they, the World Economic Forum and the UN and all these discussions were about, harmonization. And so trying to have governments having the same kind of rules and regulation. and to try to implement in the beginning a kind of a world government, but that was not so clear that it is right now. I'll give you an example. People are saying, oh, Bernier, when you're speaking about that, it's a conspiracy theory. There's no world government, and the federal government is 100% sovereign, and we are deciding here what we want, and it's the same thing for other countries. Yes and no. Because I'll give you the best example is the European Union. When they started that in Europe in the 1960s, that was only for free trade. And I'm for free trade. I'm for globalization. I'm against globalism, but I'm for globalization, more free trades. It always brings more prosperity. So that being said, that was the beginning of the European Union. At that time, they were calling that the free trade agreement, and after that, so that was the beginning. But now what you have in Europe, you have a real supranational government that is dictating other governments what to do, and so and their rules and regulation are enforced in other countries. So that being said, I understand what happened in UK when they decided to go out and voted for Brexit. So that's an example in Europe. They started that by free trade, and after that, they had a couple of years after that, decades after that, they have right now a supranational government. The UN and the World Economic Forum, that's their end goal. They want to do that. Now it's only treaties and free trade, but they have that vision, and they are speaking about that vision. I don't agree with that. I think we must do, yes, some treaties about free trade, but not giving our sovereignty. And in Canada right now, we signed the Paris Accord, we signed the UN Compact on migration, UN Compact on migration. I'm against that. We must not sign that. We must be in charge of our immigration policy in Canada. And for climate change, our position, we won't sign that treaty. We won't impose any tax in our country for that. But that being said, now it's more open. They're speaking about that, and they think that it would be best for the globe, for the planet, to have a one world government. It may happen in 20 years, in 15 years, in 40 years, I don't know. But we must fight that ideology, and that's what we are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how it's been able to move forward in that respect. And just even recently, there was a lot of information going out about the People's Treaty and the Pandemic Treaty. The People's Treaty, of course, fighting the Pandemic Treaty, and a lot of people were saying the same thing too about the Pandemic Treaty. And this was something that I think 136 nations had signed on to before in 2005 with the IHR, which of course gave the WHO the rights to say this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to follow, and why all of these countries basically had the same rules for lockdowns. And what was interesting is that people didn't really understand that this is part of that globalization, where now they decide that if they're going to follow the same rules as Australia, that's going to apply to here in Nebraska, that's going to apply to in Saskatchewan, that's going to apply to every corner of the earth that essentially signs on with this. What were your thoughts on the Pandemic Treaty that they were trying to push through as well?
Yeah, you're right by saying they want to update that treaty, and they are in negotiation right now. And the final treaty must be only in 2024. But that being said, we don't need that. Actually, the pandemic that we had, that was like you just said, every country were following the World Health Organization. And that's why, we didn't respect our constitution here in Canada, our freedoms and our rights, our constitutional rights. And, I believe that the pandemic, we don't need, a World Health Organization telling us what to do. We have a Canadian expert here in Canada that can help us if there's another pandemic, and actually other experts. In the beginning of that pandemic, I've read the Great Wellington Declaration, and I said, that's common sense. We must go there, protect the most vulnerable people, and open the economy. Don't do any lockdowns. And that was the solution. Now we know, and we had the data at that time that virus was not deadly for 99% of the population. So what they did, that was not based on science. So that's why, the World Health Organization, I don't want them to interfere here in our country, in Canada. And I don't think that we must, as a country, sign that new pandemic treaty that they are negotiating right now.
Do you think Trudeau will be signing it? And if he does, is there any way to reverse out of it?
Yes, I believe that he will. But Trudeau is worse than the World Health Organization.
Yes, he is.
Because right now, if you go on their website, they're not promoting any vaccine passport. And Trudeau still have the vaccine passport up to yesterday. Now he said today, Monday, June 20, that no more vaccine passport for Canadians that are not vaccinated. So I'll be able to travel by plane in my own country. But that was not a request from the World Health Organization. And we were the only country on this planet that had that against our citizens. So that being said, he removed that only temporary. And so that's a big problem. That can come back next fall or next winter. We don't know. So Trudeau actually is a globalist, and he will follow what the World Health Organization will tell him, or the UN. And because he likes to have controls, I believe that he will do a little bit more, like he just did for the vaccine passport for Canadian travelers. So, and if he signed that new pandemic treaty that they are negotiating right now, yes, we can always withdraw from that. Look, another example, when Trump was in government, when Trump was the president, he said, I won't sign the Paris Accord. I'm not participating in that. And so he was not, and the US was not as a country. And Biden came back and said, yes, I'm going on, I'm signing that treaty, and I will do everything to respect the goals that we signed in for being part of that treaty. So you can always say no, you can always withdraw from an international treaty, but Trudeau will do everything that the UN will tell him to do.
Yeah, it seems like he just likes to be the star pupil to Klaus Schwab for his young leaders group. Always got to be that one student in class, right? That's just got to suck up to teacher. So it seems, and you just finished speaking about, the regulations being lifted there for June 20th. And, it's been a very long time for Canadians to be able to travel, to see their family. I know for myself, it's been 3 years since I was able to come back home. I just because of my green card status here in the United States and because of my Canadian citizenship, I'm fortunately in a gray area that I finally managed to drive across. And we will say that I loosely followed rules because we're public. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But coming back to Canada, it was really different. It was really different. The sentiment among people. I mean, people were happy, but what I had really seen though was a huge decline in mental health. Especially seeing my parents. My dad is 86, my mom is 71, and not being able to see me, and the effects of the mental health, the rates of suicide that have gone up, and the way it's crushed people's spirits, not being able to connect with their families and to be able to travel. It's something that the elites love to do and boast about it. I know Obama boasted about being able to travel to write his books and how it's wonderful for the mind. And here we are having Canadians trapped in their homes. For me, like I said, I was in a fortunate spot, but what do you see this now? Do you think that it was just because of, was it a purely political move? Or was it because of the pressure from the airlines, which to me seems kind of interesting because the airlines were all kind of on board with it at first. What do you think that was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is linked to the lockdowns and the vaccine passport. Telling people to stay at home and not visiting their friends and family. Here in my own province of Quebec, during Christmas time, the government said, no more than 4 people for Christmas. And some people followed that, and they were scared. So now, and I said at that time, suicide rates will go up, and that's happening right now. Depression and all that.
Mm.
It's all because of that. We are human. We need to have more conversation and communication.
Mhm.
Our people. That's part of the human nature. So we are social animals. So we need to be together. And that was very tough for a lot of people. Actually, you're right about it. I know personally some people that had depression, people that are people who are working in marketing in big corporation. They used to see people and they were alone in their condo. That was very difficult for them and other Canadians. So that had a huge impact on mental health of Canadians for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As it was just, it's just so weird coming back to Canada in a sense of just knowing that what had happened up there from a social perspective and psychological perspective as well, because of the results of the lockdowns and the continuation of draconian rules that, I mean, quite frankly, no other country, Canada's the only one still that was doing that. It's unheard of to not even be able to fly in your own country, province to province, or be able to get on a plane. It was just wild, and these restrictions. And now, even being able to talk about that, we might be in trouble now too. Max, what is going on with C11 up there, and how is that going to affect content creators? Is it going to is there trying to turn everyone into mini minion CBC narrative pumpers, or what's going on with C11? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I will. But just before speaking about that, I just want to let you know, maybe your viewers don't know it, but also I'm suing the federal government because I was not travel by plane, and it is our constitutional right to be able to travel by plane across this country. And our hearing will start September 19, and that is important because these mandates can come back next winter. So we want to have a decision from the court saying that all that was unconstitutional, and if we have that, that would be a great legal precedent. And so the federal government or provincial governments won't be able to impose vaccine passport anymore for the future. So yeah, I was saying that for the last 2 years that it was unconstitutional, but to stop the government, we need to have a court that will say that. So that's why that battle in the court is very important, and I'm doing that battle also. If we have a negative decision, if the judge said that no, it was not against the Constitution, you can be sure that we'll appeal that decision up to the Supreme Court of Canada, because we don't want what happened the last 2 years happening again, because as we just said, mental health and it was all that was affecting Canadians, and so mentally and their health, not only mental health, but also you are not able to go to a gym and to do some sports sometime in lives. So we need a decision. I'm fighting, and I hope that we will win. But that being said, yes, on Bill C11, that's the same, almost the same bill, because before the election, the Trudeau government tabled a bill C10, and now the new one, it's the Bill C11. They didn't change anything. What I didn't like in that bill, they they are giving a lot of power to the CRTC. The CRTC is the regulator that is in charge of regulations in the telecom industry, and so in the telecom industry and in the radio and television industry also. So they have more power, but they're saying we won't use it. And yes, they can use it and censor us on social media. Now, what they can do now, if you're very popular on social media and you have a lot of followers, they can say, oh, you're a broadcaster like CBC, another one, you must pay a tax, you must register, and you'll be under the CRTC, and you'll have to to be in line with their regulations. So that's a
Wow.
lost systems, and that's the beginning of a censorship. So that's why we are against that bill. That can be very dangerous if the CRTC is using all the powers that the federal government is giving them to, fight disinformation. Disinformation is when you don't like that narrative, you're saying, oh, it's disinformation. No, we must be out there to be able to explain another point of view, and that's part of a democracy. You must have a lot of point of views, but right now it's not the case. If you're against the central narrative coming from the government, you are at risk of being censored. And actually right now we have censorship coming from Google, coming from Twitter, coming from Facebook. I must tell you, on my Twitter account, I used to grow by 2,000 followers every 3 days. Now, for the last 2 months, I'm stuck at 189,000 followers. Didn't grow up, didn't go down. So yes, I'm shadow banned on Twitter. We have censorship right now with the big tech, and you will add more censorship coming from the government. No, we must we must be sure that this bill won't pass, but I don't know what will happen, but you can be sure that we will repeal that bill. And we will always explain the situation to Canadians. We want more Canadians to understand that's the beginning of a loss of our freedoms.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And it's dangerous, covering because that other mime to me, with it's like, think while it's still legal. It's crazy the power that they'll be given, and to think that the CRTC won't abuse that power, or we won't see more accounts vanishing, being shadow banned. I know myself, it's coming up a year now that no one's been able to tag me on Instagram. My reach and my growth it's non-existent. And it's been stumped, and I've been taken off Facebook multiple times. But it's just wild to me, the sense of communism, in that sense, where it's only one way of thinking, only one way of speaking, and not having another voice. And like they say, it's the disinformation is the information they're trying to hide from you, and it's very much true in this case. Wow, that's just mind-blowing to hear that's going on in Canada. I mean, in the United States here, like I said, I'm a little bit fortunate yet that I've still got some leeway, but even still, Biden has his own plans with things down here and with censorship, and that kind of falls into that whole category as well, where it's for extremists, yet they can still label you an extremist. As I was once famously labeled by the Sophie Trudeau's cousin, Amy McPherson, who was a journalist for the Huffington Post, and I was trying to reach out to her to have her as a guest, just like this, as I reached out to your team to have, and I was called a right-wing extremist, and she went off on me. So it's really interesting, all these gray areas that they're going to get to work with in that respect. Wow. Let's talk about another hotbed topic here too, while we're at it, and while we still have a voice to be able to do so. In the US, they just finished approving the shots for under 5-year-olds with very little data. And as we know, big pharma, lobbyists, politicians, it's a revolving door. We know that the big pharma has paid out the most in criminal fines. Moderna is owned by DARPA. DARPA is the R&D arm of the Pentagon. I mean, everything just reeks of bad news. And in Canada, I want to know, like, what are your thoughts going forward? Because this is one of the other things too that I kind of gave a little, bite to with Pierre, and he had taken a photo with Bill Gates, and great guy or whatever, something, I can't remember exactly what was in the caption of the post. But here's my thing, Max. And I know pictures, they could just be whatever, but I know with traditional political parties, the same bird, both wings idealism with that. I want to know what you would do, because the thing with Pierre and the thing with conservatives or liberals, and as we know, like Trudeau buying all the doses, and Florida actually just said no to those doses. They're not buying anymore. What would you do for Canadians in the future to not have big pharma's cure imposed on them? And essentially, what I'm looking for is someone who's not going to bend the knee, because I feel like people in other political parties, they're going to be, easily have their arm easily twisted. Money talks. We all famously know of the conversation between Donald Trump that he had between himself and Bill Gates. And Bill Gates was, proclaiming, oh yeah, Donald Trump told me that he was going to look into it. And I told him, no, that's not a good idea. I'm looking for someone who's not going to bend the knee to big pharma. So what would you do if, down the road, they want to have another mRNA vax for monkeypox or another outbreak or whatever else down the pipe?
So we're saying we will say no to that, because the most important right now is to give the right information to Canadians, and didn't have the right information at the last pandemic. The other narrative, they were telling us the vaccine is very safe and it's very efficient. They were telling us, you need one dose and that would be perfect. One shot and it would be perfect. After that, 2 shots. And now they're saying in Canada, we may update your vaccine status every 6 months. So, that vaccine, I'm not a doctor, but it's not as efficient to stop the transmission of that virus, but it may be efficient if you are older with comorbidities. So we will give the right information for Canadians to have an informed consent that didn't have during that pandemic. And we won't promote other treatments like Governor DeSantis is doing. When people had COVID here in Canada, stay at home, and they didn't treat anything, they didn't do anything. Stay at home, you have the vaccine, everything will be okay. But it was not okay for everybody. So that being said, we won't jump in their train and being there to do everything that the big pharma is telling you what to do. We will need to have a real discussion with Canadians about everything about the vaccine and everything about the future. I want them to understand, a little bit like DeSantis did in Florida when he had, a meeting and with a couple of experts, and he was asking questions, and they had experts that was on videos and were able to see the answer from the expert. He was informing his population on different aspects of the pandemic. So we must do the same thing, and we will. Canadians don't know that this vaccine is an experiment on their experimentation until 2024. So they must know that. That's important. And yes, here in Canada today, they said that young people, they will promote the vaccine for young people more than 6 months. So for infant and kids, when we know that they're not in danger, and if they catch COVID, that will be okay in 99.99% of the case. So let's them, live their life without having that vaccine, but they want to promote that to kids when their life is not in danger if they have COVID-19. We know that. We have 2 years of data. So I'm against that.
Yeah, well, That's good to hear, because like I said, I want someone that's not gonna bend the knee to big pharma, and that's going to, I mean, fine, if someone wants it, someone wants it, but not to have, your way of life restricted to, fear monger and call people names. I was absolutely disgusted hearing Trudeau calling, Canadians misogynists and racists and all this kind of stuff. I was like, what kind of leader does this? A leader is supposed to bring people together, and it was absolutely appalling for me to watch this from the United States and see my fellow Canadians go through that. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling, but that's incredible to hear, because like I said, I know people kind of got a little mad at me for throwing that out there to Pierre and stuff like that, but like I said, money talks and people can be influenced. So all I want is a leader that's going to actually put their foot down and say, no, this is how it's going to be in that case. And then
And I may add, Mandy, on that. I didn't take the vaccine, so and I believe that you must judge politicians by what they're saying, but also by their action.
Yes.
And look at it. Look at Polyev in Canada. He was promoting the vaccine and promoting the lockdowns and all that. He didn't say anything. And now, it's a little bit more popular to speak about freedom and against the vaccine passport. So he's doing that, and he's taking all the credibility like an opportunist politician. But
yeah, well, those news cycles, they go fast and everyone forgets. But I work on social media for a living, and I can tell everyone that he did not come up on my radar at all until about the same timeline around the August 2021, and then finally to the convoy in January there. So like I said, as someone that works on social media online all the time and has eyeballs online everywhere, I did not see him speaking out from the beginning like yourself. So like I said, I have my red flags about him. And, like I said, I think every politician should be held to a higher level of scrutiny. And that's kind of, why I'm asking you these questions. And, I want to know your stance on them, because, if I'm going to vote for someone, I want to make sure that Canada is going to be led the right way, in a way that, again, is standing on great policies like the PPC party. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about here before we run out of time, we've got a few minutes left, but we talked a lot about mental health and the situation of mental health in Canada. Myself, I've gone through some traumatic events in my life where I've sought out the use of plant medicine, psychedelic healing therapy, like ayahuasca, psilocybin. I work with clients where it's legal in their area with psilocybin. Some is old, in their 80s, some in their 50s, some, 28 years old. And I've seen profound effects. And there's great companies, and there's a company in Vancouver, or British Columbia, rather. I don't believe it's Vancouver. It's in British Columbia, Therapsil. And they're currently trying to work with, the health minister of Canada to help get responsible people care providers and the psilocybin medicine into their hands that are dealing with end of life trauma, cancer, these types of things like that. They've currently only had a few people approved, and then they haven't heard back. Like, nothing's been renewed from the health minister. Like, people are left up in limbo. And with the decriminalization going on in Toronto, the decrim going on in BC, this provides rather a wonderful opportunity. We know that it's following the same path as cannabis. We know the incredible benefits of it, both for mental health, for our physical ailments, and of course for the economy. And I'm wondering what your stance is on that with psychedelic therapies, and if your party would be willing to look into that or lead the charge to help expedite that for patients who are in dire need of care. Because someone that's terminally ill, unfortunately, waiting 6 months to hear back from a health minister isn't going to do them that good.
Yeah, so thank you for asking. I must say that it's a shared jurisdiction with provinces because healthcare is it is healthcare 100% of provincial jurisdiction, but also you'd like cannabis, like you said, at the federal level. We have a role because some of these narcotics are prohibited under the criminal code.
Mhm.
So what I believe that we must do, yes, more testing, and we must ask Health Canada to be more vigilant, and they can do testing, or they can ask third party to do more testing and being sure, because it is being used right now for some people, and but not widely. So I like competition. I like competition of ideas. I like competition in everything. So our party will be open to have more testing, and being in that phase to look and having more studies, because we know that these drugs can be efficient and can work, but we need to know a little bit more about it. And it's too bad that Health Canada are always promoting what is going from the big pharma, and they're very fast to change their regulations when it's coming from big pharma. So they must be more open, they must do more testing, and we must be able, at the end of that process, us Canadians, to have a choice if we are in a condition that we may need these kinds of drugs.
Well, that's really good to hear. That's really promising, and I do hope that will be an option for Canadians one day, and hopefully under the PPC party one day. So I want to thank you, Max, so much for your time today and for sitting with me through all these questions and a little bit of light grilling and being able to answer and get some more information out there to my community. And oh, one more question, speaking of community, one of the most popular questions real quick from my community, they want to know, they're sick of hearing that if they vote for PPC, they'll split the vote, they're all that kind of stuff. Like me, I think if everyone would just stop saying that and actually just vote how they want to vote, like with PPC, then just do it. But they want to know, like, what can they do? Do you need more volunteers? Like, what can they do for you?
Yeah, first of all, we must say that there's no such thing as splitting the vote. First, I will tell you why. You must vote for your values. You must vote for what you believe. And stop to vote against something. Vote for what you believe, and you have more chances to have it. So that being said, when the conservative, because it's only the conservatives that are saying that, because they're afraid of us, they're afraid of the truth and the real conservative values. When they're saying that, they're taking for granted that 100% of our supporters are coming from the Conservative Party of Canada. And so if all of them go back to the Conservative, they will win. So that's not true, actually. And, Léger Léger did a poll, and another corporation did it also, I don't know which one, because these pollsters wanted to know who are these crazies that are voting for Bernier. So, and they did a couple of questions and polls, and I must agree with their conclusion. And they're saying in their polls that a third of our supporters are coming from the Conservative Party of Canada. The other third of our supporters are coming from another political parties, NDP, Liberals, Green, Bloc Québécois in Quebec. Another third of them are like your mom, like you just said, never voted at the federal level and voted for us for the first time. So imagine there's 40% of Canadians that didn't vote at the last election. If we have only half of them, we'll be at 20%. So we can grow from with these people, but the majority of our supporters are not coming from the Conservative Party of Canada. And actually, you need to vote in line with what you believe, and that's why. And if you look at us, look at what we said. We are doing politics differently, and we are speaking about real issues. There's no taboo subjects for us, and that's why I believe that we can grow from 0 to 1.6 to 5 And now we have about 3 years to build the party. That's what I'm doing. I'm traveling across the country. I'll be in Burlington, Ontario this Saturday. And after that, I'll go to Western Canada, Calgary, and BC, build a party, being ready. So that's when they're saying, you know, don't vote because you split the vote. It's just because that's the only argument that they have. And that's a very weak argument, because we know that our supporters are not coming all from the Conservative Party of Canada.
Wonderfully said. And that makes so much more sense. And that's such a great way to just squash that simple one-liner that everyone uses. So thank you so much for clarifying on that. And that's so great to hear. But I really do think that you guys are going to have exponential growth. And I do look forward to seeing that growth. So again, thank you, Max, so much for your time. And I will see you on social media. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And at next time, have a nice day.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.